let's start at the beginning of how the two of you came to work together, which was back on that short. And could you talk about sort of your early experience working together and the origins of the project back then?
Sure. So in Project Involve, I was in the directing track, and KD was in the writing track. And so the way it worked was the writers wrote scripts, and then the directors pitched on the scripts. I can't remember if we had certain ones we could pitch on, if we could pitch on any of them that we wanted. But
I think you could pitch on any. We had talked fairly early on, like, because we were all encouraged as part of the program. For anyone, I guess, who doesn't know what Project Involve entails, they choose roughly 6 of each track. So there's like a directing track, editing, cinematography, writing, and what's the last one? Producing. Producing.
Thank you, Francisca.
So they choose roughly 6 of each, and so we were encouraged for the first few months of the program to get to know each other's work. And so he had read some of my stuff, and I had watched his stuff, and we, before we got into writing the scripts and coming up with the story ideas, we got to know each other a little bit more, and I came up with this idea, and I remember pitching it to you and to Jonique, who was the producer of our short, and I think we talked about it before you started pitching on it, so that was cool. It was but I was still like I was scared of this project because it was a humorous take on something that was very serious, but I also thought that was what made it special, was that it was looking at it through a different lens. And I remember Angel Christy Williams was one of our advisors, or like she was running the program, and she told me to watch this short called 5 Deep Breaths, I believe it was, and that really focused on, it was sort of a similar thing, but not as humorous, but it really focused on the friendship of these young men as like the heart of it. And I was like, oh shit, that really is the way in. And I'm forever grateful to her for showing me that, because that really kind of made me like focus for the short. So I pitched on it, and we got paired. It's funny because we had kind of pre-talked about it a little bit, but it was really in the program's hands of pairing us together. So thanks, Film Independent.
So the short films that are made every year in Project Involve, every year, they're so strong, such great filmmaking. One of the things, but they tend to be, I shouldn't say but, that they're great, and they tend to be very dramatic and more than comedic pieces. And I will never forget the night watching the premiere of your short, where it's obviously dealing with some really real issues, but the element of humor just cut through and was so unexpected and powerful and great, and it's here in the feature as well.
We're going to 7 parties tonight, bro.
You should take it easy. Don't get Kunle into any trouble. That boy's black excellence.
Oh, come on. We only gonna have 5 minutes when we get back to pregame, change, and leave.
Sean, what? Where's Carlos? There's an unconscious white girl in our living room.
What?
We can't just leave her somewhere. We take her to the hospital.
Shotgun.
I told you we should just call 911, but you wouldn't let.
It looks like she's in that car.
What the hell is going on? We don't know who she is.
Actually, she just told me that she's in high school.
No! Think about it statistically. How many people actually get shot by the cops? It's like really, really unlikely, right?
What are you talking about?
911, what is the nature of your emergency?
When you were writing this, was from the beginning, were you thinking that, is it your disposition to approach things with humor, or did you make the conscious decision here that you really wanted to deal with this material through the lens of humor?
Yeah, I think that it was important to both of us that this felt grounded, but that, I think that we had both seen a lot of things that were trying to tackle the issue of, police and the tense relationship with communities of color. And I'm Latina. My dad's here. He grew up in East LA, and I think that this was something that
looking at the issue, the thing that interested me was this idea of the struggle of like the fact that there's a culture of fear. We wanted to talk about the culture of fear and not necessarily an incident where somebody gets shot, if that makes sense. Like, there have been a lot of films that I had seen on the short film festival circuit of like, look at how racism is bad. And I think that we were like, if you haven't figured out that racism is bad by now, I don't know what we're gonna tell you. We're not gonna teach you that. Right. So we wanted to do, the short film was very much it was the scene at the end of Act 1 where they find her and they're just discussing whether they're gonna call 911 or not. And like, it's very much a contained short. And you get to see their decision-making process, and that the tension of the movie in the short and in the feature, and the thing that the comedy and the drama are both mined from is that fact that these guys have to go through this constant calculus of trying to figure out, how am I being perceived right now? And like thinking about, do I appear like a threat? What can I do to mitigate that? Is, it's very much something that, we wanted to talk about, and that like that's where the comedy comes from, and it's something that we hadn't seen before, and so I think that like we were aware of that from the short, and so really very much helped to have that going into the short and then coming into the feature film. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, it was always meant to be sort of like, it was supposed to be a little bit of a cathartic, comedic experience for people who've been in that position, but also have that sort of thriller spine, like a little bit of that thriller horror, like the way it's shot is something that Carey definitely like brought.
Yeah, I mean, for me, beyond the short, I was excited to explore their relationship more, and also to touch on the culture of fear and anxiety in young men of color. And I felt like if I just was honest with their relationship, it was going to be humorous because of the situations that Katie had written. So I didn't try to push any comedy with like the way it was shot. I just wanted it to be, I wanted it to feel very authored, but not to feel like it felt like a comedy. You know what I mean? Because this is a very real situation for them in this night. So I tried to make it very, very author, but not like it feels comedically shot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we talked about it very early on, like in the short and that this is not a comedy to them at all. Like this is the most horrifying night of their lives, and so we wanted to make sure that that comes across, that it's funny on the level of, from an outsider looking in, it's funny, but not at all for them at all.
Right. Carey, could you talk about casting for the feature? How sort of, after you'd done the short, you'd learned so much from doing that, and then of course you did another feature in between. Yeah. So when it came time to do the feature of Emergency, what ideas did you have about casting, and what led you to? It's a fantastic cast. I'm curious how you assembled it.
This cast is phenomenal. I am so blessed with this cast. So I had to get RJ back in there because I had done a movie called R#J that he played Benvolio. And he's fantastic. So I had to get him back in there. And then we had a really great casting director, Kim Coleman, who brought us a lot of people. She brought us Donald. She brought us Sebastian. Temple Hill had a relationship with Sabrina already, and so I met with Sabrina, and she was super dope and cool. We just like zoomed with each other and talked about music and those kind of things, and she totally understood his character, and we talked about the character and the privilege and all that stuff. So it really nicely fell into place. I mean, I feel like everything from having that piece with RJ as that anchor with Sean, and then finding the Kunle with Donald, who matched up beautifully with him. Their chemistry was so great. And then Sebastian coming in and rounding out the trio. And then we also, when we were in Atlanta, that's when we got Madison and Maddie and Diego, and kind of rounded out the rest of the cast there. But it was really a joy to cast this film. And after they all came together, they like clicked so nicely. It was I was like, you know, with it's an ensemble in a lot of ways, and like you really hope they will like gel and really click, but they really did. So it was dope.
I also thought it was really funny that of the core, like the women in the cast, they're named, all of them are named Maddie except the one who plays Maddie.
Yeah, that's true.
When did you film?
We filmed this, dude, literally a year ago. It was
So
a year
right in
ago.
the middle of-
Yeah, I mean, it was in during the pandemic. You know, it was in Atlanta. God, it was like April, like right April.
May, I guess, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we're sick of COVID and we're sick of talking about it, but could you talk about how that sort of what your production was like? I mean,
Swabbing every day.
Yeah.
Swabbing every day, man.
Yeah.
It was so.
Because you had a lot of extras, right? You have the big
Yeah,
party scenes,
so that
you got-
actually stopped. That actually stopped us from shooting sooner because Amazon had definitely like some protocols about like how many people could be in a room at a time during the pandemic, and we kept watching the numbers and all that stuff, and when is it getting better and all that stuff, because we explored, because for the party scenes we wanted it to feel like this is college party shit. So we explored like special effects, visual effects, all that stuff. Like I was sitting there trying to think of like, what if we put cardboard cutouts with smoke and strobes and shoot through windows, like anything? Because I was like, we got to shoot this shit. Because I get nervous, like the longer we don't shoot, the more this shit could not happen. So I was thinking of all this stuff. But eventually we were able to get everything. We were able to go there and shoot. And yeah, I mean, it was. There's definitely this thing of. With the mask on and like all that stuff, it puts a little bit of a barrier with like things and having to be distant, but we persevered. I mean, we were able to get through it and make it work.
Yeah, we were also lucky that it was like in that tiny golden window right after the vaccine came out and right before Delta hit. So it was like right there. We were like, oh, it's going away, everything's fine. And then right after production was when it all went bad again.
Yeah.
So that was spring of 21, and the short came out in 18, right? So I'm also curious to hear both of you talk about, those are some pretty pivotal years in the history of this country and what's going on in the culture and politically, and I mean, a lot of, this is clearly a development of the short and the same themes and the same material, but I'm really curious, given what's been going on in the country, in developing this into a feature, how did it change for you? And were there directions you wanted to push it because of what was going on politically and culturally?
Yeah, I think that even just when it came to coming up with the idea for the short film, I remember the election happened right when we started the program at Film Independent. Do you remember? It was like it happened, and then we were supposed to be writing, like we were supposed to start pitching short ideas right after the election. And every idea that we all had, I think, went out the window, and it was like, we need to write something that's means something to us and says something. And it almost felt like cathartic. I mean, I think for a lot of us working on the short film, it felt like a cathartic process. And for the feature, I mean, we didn't write the short, or we didn't make the short as a proof of concept for a feature originally. We made it as a standalone. And so the feature film came out of just, we had gone on the festival circuit, and we were I think very surprised at how people were responding so positively. Like I remember people would come up to us afterward and just, they were so like effusive and like, I don't know, grateful. It was kind of a strange thing, but for feeling like represented. And I think that really made us feel that we had to do this story justice in the feature version. And I think that the story of how the feature version came about was that Carey, basically we were at Sundance, and
I think it was
people,
South by.
yeah, and people started asking Carey, like, where's the feature version? And he was like, she's working on it right now. I was like, oh, I guess I'm working on it right now.
That's
okay.
how you do. That's what
News.
you do. Just
yeah.
say
So,
yes.
So I started, we thought of it really early on. We knew that it was going to be one of those One Crazy Night stories, but of course it had to be expanded, and that was more of an opportunity to tell a more complicated, nuanced story about these men and their friendship, but also their place in this political climate that we're in. And this is something we had also been asked many times. I mean, if you recall, like, we have been asked so many times, how did you you came up with this idea? It's so topical, because we started the script, we started like shopping it around like 2019, 2020.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Like 2019, I guess.
Yeah.
And people were like, it's so relevant. And we were like, this has been a thing in our communities forever. Like, this isn't just relevant now. Like, we shot the short back in 2017, and like the protests happened, and people were like, wow,
It's
so
that
topical.
lens that we
Yeah.
went to it.
So it's just it's interesting that, I mean, this has always been relevant for the Latino community and the Black community.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Carey, I wanted to ask you about a couple scenes towards the end of the film that I just thought were beautifully done. And I wasn't one scene I really wasn't expecting was towards the end, the big climactic scene of their friendship when they come together, when he comes back and they have that conversation in the lab.
Yeah.
And it's such an intense emotional scene, and just a beautiful embodiment of their friendship in that moment. I'd love to hear you talk about directing them and I'm really curious what kind of atmosphere you create on set, and how that scene came together for you.
For sure. I'd like to think I create a very safe, playful atmosphere on set. If actors have ideas that they want to try, they feel like they can. So hopefully that comes across, and I think it does. But that scene was the scene I wanted to shoot the most. Like from jump, I was like, that's the scene that I want to see, because that to me was something I don't see enough on screen of two young Black men really being emotionally open with each other and telling each other they love each other in that way. So in directing that scene, I was it had been so much build up to it. I was like, coming in that day, I was like, oh man, this has got to be great. And it's funny because there's one, like, we did a rehearsal, and I think the guys were like so ready for it. We did a rehearsal, and RJ just like, boom, like really just went, and I was like, oh my God, we were not rolling on this shit. Like, what? And it's in my brain now, like, forever. This shit is like digital, like, just roll everything. Like, I don't know why, but anyway, it's beside the point. They're so good, they were able to like bring it back. But there was one moment when Donald was doing his take, and it was like maybe like second or third take. And I just went to him, and I remember this, and I was like, just talk to your brother. Because I felt like I'd seen that relationship build with him and RJ so much over the few weeks we'd done it, that that simple thing would open up something. And I was like, don't worry about the script right now, just talk to your brother. And like, that is mostly the take that we use in the movie, because it just was like, he goes off script, but it's like real emotionally raw, open. And that was just, I remember going in there to like say something to him after that take, and when I came back, like, there was like a box of Kleenex on my like chair, because I had been like bawling during the thing. But that's it, man. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't do a lot of takes of that. We didn't do a lot. It was just like, maybe 2 or 3, and just very simple, simple direction. I thought that, I could maybe give them. I think that's something I started trying to learn more on this project too, was say less, like talk a little less in like the, giving the direction, and do, I like to do a lot of stuff beforehand. Like with like talking with the actors, and sharing music. And then when we're doing it, try to like give a little less like redirection, if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that scene, it's remarkable, and so much of the film is like, it's up here. It's so tense,
Yeah.
not knowing what's going to happen. And they're going and they're going. And in that moment, it's like, you can just see them breathe and the audience with them. It was, really, really beautiful.
Thank you,
beautifully
man.
written too. I love I don't know if this is right at the end of the movie, the scene when the two of them come to the door and Sabrina Carpenter's character starts to read her letter. I just have to say, my reaction to that, I thought, oh, she's going to read her letter, and what's she going to say? I'm like leaning in, and then he closes the door, and I'm like, of course he closed the door on her. Like, that, I don't know, I thought that was a great, beautifully written moment, and also...
It's funny, because that's something where she went on a bit longer in the script, and that's an edit. They cut her off earlier, so good job, editor. And director, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, should we tell him?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a longer scene, and
it was like they had to endure her apology, and it was a little bit more excruciating to watch before. So yeah, I think it's more cathartic to watch the.
Yeah, I feel like we gave Kunle his agency back in that moment, and he needed that after what he'd been through with the way we did it this way. We did a few different versions of some things that could happen. With that reading of the apology,
Right.
And we felt like this felt the most satisfying for Kunle, and it's really like we're in his journey at that moment. So like, what's the most satisfying thing for him in that moment before that other moment of PTSD is gonna settle back in for him? It felt good to give him that, so that's how we landed on it.
Yeah. I got to write the ADR line though.
Yeah,
that was fun. I'll just leave it in the mailbox.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
But then the next shot, I also thought was beautiful, of just his face, where he looks like a young boy, just happy and like so expressive,
Yeah.
and then you hear that siren, and it's all back.
Yeah.
That was just beautifully done. Like, just playing it out on his face, I thought was really remarkable.
Thanks, man. It's very bittersweet because for me, I really like Sean's look to him too in that moment, because it's very, very much like, man, I don't want this for you, but I'm also happy that your eyes are open. Like, you will be better equipped to navigate this world if you have a little less, innocence, in a way. That look that he gives him, coupled with that look to camera, I think, are two for. And at one point I was like, should we end on Sean? But I'm glad we stuck with ending it with Kunle, because it really is about how he's kind of changed and his eyes have opened.
Yeah, it's funny thinking about that scene was something that was in the script from the very first draft of the Jenga tower. I don't know where I remember
where did the
pitching
Jenga come
I think
from?
it's because I was playing a lot of Jenga with my sisters, and it's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic game. But yeah, it is one of those things. It's like pure joy, and then, but it's tragic. It's like this. You're seeing the loss of innocence.
Yeah.
Well, lastly, I just want to say, I feel like both of you are just on such a roll. I mean, KD, you Oscar nominee for a short film this year. Yes, give it up.
That was nuts. Yeah.
And Carey, you've had 2 features back to back at the COVID Sundances.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
congrats.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're able to see the film tonight with an audience, and I
Yeah.
hope during the theatrical run that you'll get out there and be able to see it with more that experience of seeing it with live audiences, because it's such a great film.
Yeah.
And congratulations to both of you, and thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Film Independent Project Involve, and
Thank you for the homecoming, man.
Yeah.
This feels good. This is special. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to my mom and my dad for coming to the screening. I think this was the first time they've seen it in a theater, so I'm excited. Anyway,
That's great.
Yeah.
I can't see anybody, but I know
Yeah, I
you're
know.
out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I don't want to steal the show, but it's not Project Involve if we don't acknowledge the community. And Mike De La Torre, where are you? Here you are, man. Thank you so much. It's another PI fellow, cinematographers. They cannot do it by themselves. They need a community. And that's what we do at Project Involve. Have a good night. Thank you so much.